Just before this video starts, I want to give you guys a bit of a heads up and a trigger warning that I am going to be talking about some quite heavy themes surrounding labour, delivery, and death as well. So yeah, just a heads up for that one, just so you guys are aware. But yeah, on to the video.
We are back and welcome back to our channel, you absolute bloody legends. It's been a little while since we've chatted with you guys and there's been a video, and there is very good reason for that, which I'm going to explain to you guys in today's video. Today's video isn't going to be a heavily edited video. I'm just going to put it out there early doors to you guys that today's video isn't going to be anything paranormal. It's not going to be a typical Spooky Sunday. It's just going to be about something that happened to Lainey during the birth. It was something that was really, really scary and kind of knocked us a little bit. So we feel like we owe it to you guys to explain what happened, just so you can get an understanding as to why we've been so quiet. So without any mucking about, we're just going to get straight into it. So be sure to get yourself a brew. Keep those lights on. Nothing scary is going on today. And let's get into the video. So let me set the scene for you guys. Last Sunday, the 27th of February. Lainey, we just wake up. It's a normal day for us. And throughout the day, Lainey starts to get quite tight, tense feelings in her tummy, which we later found out turned out to be contractions beginning. By about 4 o'clock, 4:30, the contractions were getting really heavy, really tight, and they were quite quick. So there'll be a contraction happening for about a minute, then a minute and a half break, then a contraction. Then we phoned up the hospital and they said that it was time to head into the hospital because she was going into labour. Really exciting times. Obviously, we'd been prepped for this, so we got our bags, jumped in the car, headed straight for the hospital. Everything was going incredibly well. Lainey had already had her birth plan prepped. She just wanted to go for a normal delivery where, you know, the baby would come out, would go straight up to her, kind of skin to skin kind of thing, and we'd both be there to experience that together. So we got to the hospital and we found out after a few checks that Lainey was only 2 centimetres dilated, which meant that her body wasn't ready to give birth yet. She was in labour, but it wasn't full-blown labour at this point. I think they said you have to be at 4 or 5 centimetres dilated before they can start to do anything for you. So, you know, they kept her in because they needed to monitor her because she was a high-risk pregnancy. And they strapped her up, got her all checked, and within the space of about an hour, her waters had broken, and that was when the labour fully began. And everything was going incredibly well. Then there started to be a few issues. So Lainey, whenever she was contracting, her body was forcing the baby out. Even though she wasn't pushing, her body was pushing the baby out, but her uterus wasn't ready for the baby to come out yet. So this was having implications on the baby. Her body was forcing the baby out. And what they had to do was, because her body was essentially forcing her to give birth when they weren't ready for her to give birth, what they did was they got an anaesthetist in who gave her a spinal block and an epidural. The spinal block was to relax her body, to stop it from contracting, well, not stop the contractions, but just to relax the contractions to stop the body from forcing the baby out. And the epidural was to help with the pain, which, again, all went really well. They put a little hook, I believe, on the head of the baby, just to make sure that he was happy and to check his pulse and things like this. And what they discovered was, even though the contractions had calmed down, every time Lainey was contracting, it was stopping the baby's heart rate, which then became a massive issue. They had to pull like a plug on the wall, and these sirens went off. People flooded into the room, easily 8, 9 people flooding into the room. Consultants, doctors, and high-ranking doctors of all fields came in just to check her, and they managed to get the situation under control, fortunately. And they said that they were going to, again, really closely monitor the situation. At this point, Lainey was only about 5 centimetres dilated, so wasn't fully ready for the baby to come out yet. And after scanning the baby's head again, they were monitoring his heart and everything, and they basically told us that the baby was incredibly unhappy at that time. So what they were going to do is they were going to really closely monitor it from their screens out in the corridors and in the room, of course. We had our like one-to-one midwife and things like this. And she said, like, if we're not happy with how things are going, you know, we might need to go down for a C-section or a cesarean section, which Lainey was more than happy for. You know, she just wanted the baby to come out safely and happy. she didn't want the baby under too much distress. Whereas if they'd waited, they said it could have been up to 4 hours before her body was ready to give birth, and but the baby would still be under distress or a lot of stress for that period of time. So Lainey said, look, if needs be, I'm happy to go down for a cesarean. So this consultant left, and then she came back in 15 minutes later and said, we're going to have to get him out. We're monitoring the situation, and it's not looking good. If we don't act now, it could be quite fatal. So before you know it, there was 5-6 people in the room again. Lainey was signing documents to say that she was happy to have the C-section, and we were whisked down to the theatre. I obviously was given my scrubs to put on, hat, all the rest of it. I was looking great. And we had to put Lainey in a gown and everything, and we were getting prepped to go down to theatre to have this C-section. And that's kind of when things took an even worse turn. It quickly spiralled pretty rapidly out of control. So we were going down, everything was calm, everything was relaxed. Went into the theatre. The anaesthetist who initially gave Lainey her epidural and her spinal block was there, and there was people in there, prepping the room, ready for the surgery. So the plan was they were going to take the spinal block out, give her a local anaesthetic to numb her from the chest down, so they could obviously cut her open, get the baby out, and they were going to deliver in that way. Initially, we were both going to be in the room still. The baby was still going to come onto Lainey, and we were still going to have that precious moment together. Which was the plan. So we got into the theatre, Lainey was sat up, they took out the spinal block, and then they injected the local anaesthetic. But that's when the problems really began. So what had happened was what happens is what happens is the anaesthetic goes down, right? So it numbs you from like the chest down, right? And instead, because the epidural was still in her and it was still in her system, instead it travelled up, which meant that it was shutting down all of her organs from her lungs, and initially and then it shut down her mouth and everything. So she effectively, I heard this. Fuck's sake. Right, I'm going to do this without getting upset about it. So what had happened was she was saying that she couldn't breathe, and the anaesthetist ran over to her and was like, what? And she just went, her mouth had stopped moving, she couldn't get her words out, and the anaesthetist then quickly rushed me out. And Lainey, at that point, obviously I was out of the room, I wasn't allowed back in. They had to then put her under and put her under general anaesthetic, put her to sleep. And as I was leaving, obviously I turned around. They were putting tubes down her throat. They were helping her to support her breathing, and essentially she was dying. And essentially she was dying. And Lainey said that the last thing that she could hear was the anaesthetist shouting for everyone to shut the fuck up because they were losing her, and those were his words. We're losing her, and the midwife said this is a category 2, and the anaesthetist said no, this is a category 1, which essentially means that your patient's flatlined and is dead essentially. So they had to essentially begin resuscitation on Lainey. So the top half was resuscitation on Lainey, and her bottom half was getting the baby out. So they were doing 2 jobs at once. Meanwhile, I was sat in a corridor, not knowing what was going on, just knowing that things weren't going right. And the anaesthetist came out, and with the midwife with the baby, and no, the anaesthetist wasn't there. It was just the midwife came out with the baby, handed him over to me, and I didn't even look at him. I was just like, "Where's Lainey?" And they said, you know, they explained to me that things hadn't quite gone right, and you know, but what had happened was because the baby was back to back and the placenta had moved into an awkward position, they had to cut along her tummy, of course, but they had to go further to the right than they typically would, and they severed an artery, which meant that she was hemorrhaging and bleeding out. So they had told me that essentially they'd got the baby out, they'd brought her back, but then they had caused her that she had started to hemorrhage, which meant that she was then bleeding out. So there was, you know, she was essentially dying again. And, you know, the midwife got called back into the room, so I was just left with our baby, but no Lainey. And, you know, that was fucking terrifying. That was really terrifying, because it was all going tits up. And oh, fuck's sake. It was all going wrong. And then, you know, it was like what it was kind of thing. And then the anaesthetist came out to me maybe about half an hour later and said, like, look, I've never had that in my entire career. That's never happened before. And explained to me that the anaesthetic, instead of travelling down, had travelled up, shutting down her organs, essentially paralysing her and killing her and suffocating her. And then explained to me that the bleed out had happened, and what they do is they anticipate for 500 mils of blood loss within this surgery. Lainey had lost 2 litres of blood. So they were like, we phoned ahead, she may need to go for a blood transfusion. They were like, that's what's going to happen. I said, you do whatever you have to do to help her, to bring her back. And anyway, midwife came out, me and the baby went off to a room. I had to feed him because he was hungry. I didn't know what I was doing. She helped me to get him dressed. I was like, all these things that I wanted to do with Lainey, you know, and she was under the knife essentially, and I was in a room like not knowing what was going on. So that was that. She came round, she was absolutely fine, amazingly. What I've got to say is everyone who worked on her was absolutely incredible, from the midwives who helped us when we first got there to the anaesthetist who put her under. He was everybody was absolutely amazing, incredible. And without them, obviously, you know, if they weren't as incredible as they were, Lainey wouldn't be with us today. But she came round, she was in the recovery room, so me and the baby got to go and see her. And amazingly, she woke up and everyone was like, are you okay? Typical Lainey fashion, she turned around and asked if everyone else was okay, because, you know, she was like, that must have been fucking scary for you. But, you know, so they all laughed about it. It's something that we can look back on and be like, fucking hell. But at the time, obviously, you don't know what's going on, and it was absolutely terrifying. I've never felt so isolated in my entire life as I did in that moment. So she was in theatre for about 3 hours. She came round, got to see the baby. I'll post actually on our Instagram the photos of when Lainey first saw the baby. She doesn't look great, bless her, but that's if she'll allow me to. She doesn't look great, but you know, they are some precious photos. And basically, she had to stay in, of course, overnight. She was in, so that was on Sunday. He was born at 1 minute to 1 on February the 28th, and she stayed in all day Monday, and she stayed in all day Tuesday and came home on Tuesday night after making quite a swift recovery, actually. So obviously she had all the tubes in her and she was getting pumped with antibiotics and everything, you know, but she made a really, really swift recovery, managed to get her home, and where she is now still recovering. So that explains why we've been ever so absent ever since Monday. I can't remember when I last posted anything, just because, you know, it was quite a traumatic experience, and Lainey died twice essentially. So, yeah, she's doing so much better now. But you know that is why we've been ever so quiet, and why we've taken a little break, and we've just tried to embrace the moments that we've had with the little man while he's been here. But I mean, that's kind of the crux of how the birth went. Wasn't exactly as we intended it to go, of course. Something that we never want to go through ever fucking again. But like I said earlier, if it wasn't for the work of the incredible people that were there on that night, Lainey wouldn't be here today. So I don't know if anyone ever watches this video, but thank you so much. And to everyone that works in the NHS, because you people are honestly fucking incredible people. Just so incredible at what you do. But that's a different note. But yeah, so that's how that went. And obviously, like I said in the little warning at the start, it's quite gruesome, it's quite gory, it's quite horrible, and it's not how any of us intended it to go. But the point is, Lainey is home, she is safe, and she is well. The little man tested absolutely amazingly for everything. He was absolutely fine for the whole thing. It was Lainey that was the problem. But they're home now, they're safe, they're recovering, and they will be back on this channel very, very soon. And my plan is to, pick up where we left off. Obviously, we didn't have a video on Wednesday. This is for Sunday. Pick up where we left off again for Wednesday, hopefully, and get back into the routine of things. And Lainey will be back whenever she's back. But she wanted me to send you guys her love because, honestly, throughout that whole situation, you guys send in so much positivity and support our way through messages, comments and things like this truly meant the world to us. It got us through a really, really difficult time. And for that, we can't thank you enough. Truly, you don't know. Just you typing a few little words really made all the difference for us. So we are so grateful to everyone. Even if you didn't comment and you just left a like, or you were thinking of us, we really appreciate your support and your help with that because you got us through. But anyway, that's enough of me waffling on for now. I don't know if I'm going to edit this to add out all my cry bits, but I might just leave it as one whole take because I think that way it's raw. It's what I felt, it's what we felt, and you can feel it with us in the nicest possible way. But anyway, that's where we're going to wrap up the video. I hope that you can understand why we were a bit quiet, and tomorrow on Instagram we're going to post a little photo of the little man so you can see him for the very first time. But on that note, we're going to love and leave you guys. Thank you again for all your support and just everything that you do. It really put you guys into perspective for us. It really showed how much of an incredible community we've got here. So for that, we're so grateful. But before I do go, I want to ask you guys, if you guys have been through something similar and, you don't feel like you've got anyone to talk to, shoot us a message. We understand. We've literally just gone through it. So we're there for you, That's not something that you should go through on your own. And talking to people has made all the difference for us. Just me talking there now to you guys has made all the difference. So talk to us. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave you guys. I hope that you have a great rest of your Sunday, and we will speak to you very, very soon. Check out Instagram for the little man. You get to see him there first. And we will speak to you very, very soon, guys. Thank you so much again. Peace.